Hi everyone and welcome to this Fantasy Art Friday video. In this video I'm working on a drawing of a ruby dragon. I thought that this would be a fun dragon drawing to work on because I'd be able to add a bunch of vibrant colours, and then my idea was to try something a little bit different this time and contrast these bright colours of the dragon with a grey toned background and environment surrounding it. So that was my initial thought before I began working on this drawing. When it came to the sketching and the outlining process, I tried to add lots of ruby gemstones around the dragon's head, along with a massive gemstone protruding from its chest. And I wanted to layer lots of these gemstones on top of each other so that it would give me a good opportunity to develop the layering with shadows and highlights. I actually left the dragon's body flat, without any extra details added at this stage, because I wanted to try and add more texture during the colouring. Along with that, I also added a little bit of an environment with a caped character standing on the edge of the cliff. In terms of the pen I used for the outlining, I chose to use my Copic Multiliner SP 0.03mm, and I focused lots of time at this stage just to make sure the lines were nice and clean. Once the outlines were eventually completed, it was time for the colouring, and for the colouring of this drawing I used Copic Markers, starting off with the dragon's head. And the main colours I used throughout this entire drawing were crimson, cardinal, cerise, light pink and pale heath. So as you can see, with the gemstones around the dragon's head, I added the darker colouring to the shaded side of them with crimson and cardinal markers, and then on the highlighted side I used cerise and light pink. In a few areas that I wanted to add another layer of dark shading, I blended over the top of it with a black marker along with Cool Grey 5 and 7, and then to make sure I didn't lose any of the details or any of the outlines amongst all that dark shading, I started adding some highlights with a white Prismacolor pencil and a Uni-Ball white ink pen. I made sure to also add bright highlights to the dragon's eye and on top of its head. For the lighter colouring on top of the dragon's head and its horns, I just blended between light pink and pale heath, and I really liked the idea of this and just making this area of colouring a bit different from the gemstones. I actually continued with the same markers for the rest of the dragon, changing up the colouring process for some areas. Along its body, I tried to create a muscle fibre effect, starting with the base layers of crimson and cardinal, then blending streaks of extremely dark shading over the top of it with the black and the cool grey markers, and then I added a different style of highlights to the area to kind of show a different texture that contrasts the gemstones. Adding the darker layer of shading with the black and the cool grey markers definitely helped me to add depth in some areas, especially underneath the dragon's head and around its shoulder and wing. But I also felt that it was important to continue adding some outlines with the white Prismacolor pencil so that I didn't lose any details. It was really fun to work on a dragon with such vibrant colours. The cerise marker is insanely bright. It almost looks like it's glowing. I was looking forward to seeing how this would look when the drawing was completed, with it being the only area of colour in the scene, and how that contrast would affect the way the dragon stands out on the page. For the final stage of this drawing, once I'd added all the vibrant colouring, it was time to work on the background and the environment surrounding the dragon. I used Cool Grey 3, 5 and 7 for all of the cliff formations around the scene, also making sure to add some shading underneath the dragon and the character on the left. I also added crimson colouring to the character's cape, and then I added a few areas of highlighting. After that, for the background I used a 6B pencil and started placing layers of shading, making it darker towards the bottom of the page. I smoothed this shading with a blending stick and my fingers, and then I proceeded to define some cloud effects with a small eraser. I also added highlighting around the dragon with the white ink pen, and then I also used it to add a few particle effects to the scene. I also chose to use light pink and crimson markers for this, just creating some magical effects kind of surrounding the dragon. Then after that, this drawing was completed. Overall, it took about 6 hours to complete, and I had an amazing time trying this idea. I love working on the dragon drawings, and trying one like this with really vibrant colours and having them contrast a grey background like this, it was really fun to try, and I would love to attempt more ideas like this in the future. So please let me know what you think, and also let me know if you have any suggestions for future videos. If you want to see more stuff like this, then feel free to subscribe, and any likes or shares on this video, they really mean a lot to me. If you want to follow my progress and see progress photos before I post these videos, then check out the links in the description box below to check out my Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I'll see you all soon.